Mason Heintschel was so impressive a couple weeks ago against Boston College in his first collegiate start. I actually think he played a better football game last week against Florida State. He threw for 320 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. Also ran for 60 yards. So we're going to take a look at what he did against Florida State. It was pretty much the same thing that he did against Boston College. Similar uniforms on the other side of the ball. This time there was just better athletes that he did it against too. And we talked about it against Boston College. The pocket awareness, the pocket manipulation that this dude has at 18 is next level. That's why he's not only seeing the field as a true freshman. That's why he's playing such good football as a true freshman to me. We saw the same exact move this time against number 20, Blake Nicholson. The way that he just kind of subtly steps up like this. Nicholson thinks he's going to bail or step back or pump fake or whatever he's doing. This is a really good job just faking, stepping up, and then dumping it off. We're going to see him do a similar one later where he actually takes off. Like I said, he ran for 60 yards against a Florida State defense. I don't think this dude's a great athlete is the crazy part. He's definitely athletic enough. We're not going to be talking about him running a 4.4, 4.5. He just understands when to step up. He understands where to go, all that kind of stuff. So, I don't know. I'm not trying to downplay the athleticism. I'm just trying to highlight the other stuff because to me, we see all these kids in high school with great arms, great athleticism. We talk about recruiting on this channel a lot. And the reason they don't see the field is because they don't have that pocket awareness, that pocket presence. They come out and get sacked just because the game moves at such a fast level. This is a really nice throw here. This was his first touchdown pass of the game. Here's another one. He did it really well against Boston College last week, just understanding when he has to step up. Obviously, Boston College's defense is, I think, a far ways off from Florida State's defense, but we're going to see. He did get sacked 5 times this game, so there are still some learning points in that regard, but I think for the most part, I actually think throughout the course of this Florida State game, he got better. Like, if this play would have happened in the second half, I think he got used to it being so much faster than first high school and then even Boston College. This Pitt offensive line absolutely dominated Boston College. Wasn't really the case against Florida State. I think, like I said, once he kind of felt how fast this pressure was happening, this is one that I think he steps up like right now. I think he would have known to step up, but this was one of the sacks. This is his first interception of the game, and it was another type of thing. There's just better athletes on the football field from high school and probably even from Boston College, like I said. So this is a side-by-side view. I want you to pay attention to the safety that's by the Seminole head right now. In high school, this is a guy that's never going to get over to that other sideline, to that other numbers here. Look at the range that Earl Little has to get under this one. This throw was there to be had. It's a good read if the safety wasn't there. The thing is playing ACC football, these safeties have a lot more range than you're used to in high school. So that's one of those things, it's probably already fixed in real time. They probably watched the film on Monday, a couple days ago, and they were like, you just got to know that these guys can move. This is the second interception. I think this one's a bit more trusting the arm too much. Watching the first one more time, this time, pay attention to Henchel, the quarterback. He doesn't really have a great base to throw on. It doesn't matter. Earl Little probably intercepts it anyway, but he loses a lot of velocity because his feet aren't set. On this next one, he does a really good job, resettling his feet and then driving on this ball. Unfortunately, this throw is just not there. This one might be trusting your arm too much. I mean, this is a really tight window he's trying to throw into, and he doesn't have the arm yet to fit it into that window. And again, better athletes on the defense than there was in high school and then even a couple weeks ago. Now, this is another interesting one. So they're spying a lot now. You have to spy Mason Heintschel. You watch the Boston College game if you're Florida State. You're like, on 3rd and 6, 3rd and short, this guy's going to look to take off. We're going to have at least 2 guys looking at him. Look at the way 31 and 20, the 2 inside linebackers here. You want to get depth on your pass drops as a linebacker. The thing is they're not pass dropping. They're spying. They're trying to, force the issue for Heintschel to run, and if he runs, the 2 linebackers are there. Well, when you do that, all of a sudden you don't have as much depth on your pass drops, and Mason Heintschel sees that. All of a sudden, Desmond Reed's wide open on a 5-yard hitch. This isn't a crazy route here. The reason that 31 never gets under it, the reason why Blake Nicholson, number 20, never gets under that hitch route is because they're spying the hell out of the quarterback. And Heintschel does a good job dumping it off. And then all of a sudden you got Desmond Reed in space. That's not a good situation to be in as a defense. We said it again. Here's that move, that little like duck under move, that fake one. This looks just like what he did against Boston College last week. Again, not a 4-4 guy, not a 4-2 guy, but athletic enough. And then, honestly, like you talk to most quarterback coaches, they'll probably say this isn't a good throw. I don't care. This dude's just a gamer. I don't think there's very few throws I've ever seen in my life where a quarterback's just rolling to their non-dominant side, don't reset their feet, and they just put enough touch on this. Usually we're not talking about touch when we're making throws on the run, but I mean, this is really impressive stuff from a true freshman. I can't really say anything else on that. Running lanes were there all day, and running lanes are there every game. The difference is, do you have a quarterback that can feel them and hit them? And so far in his college football career, that's what Mason Heintschel does very well. So obviously you're going to start playing a lot more zone when you have a quarterback that can run, and Heintschel did a good job like picking it apart, I think. In my opinion, that's what I saw. The 2 interceptions, to me, they weren't really processing stuff. They were more true freshmen, not at the speed of college football yet. In my head, they were both good reads. He just kind of trusted his arm too much, and I think that's something that he'll start to weed out as he gets more live reps. That's the really awesome thing, I think, for Pitt having a true freshman quarterback is you got a guy that can get live reps. He's getting better every week. It's a lot harder to get better when you're not facing a live pass rush. Now, this is another true freshman one. First, I hate when these quarterbacks turn their back to the pass rush. It's good when you try to make one move. Chandler Morris at Virginia does this a lot, and it doesn't go well a lot. But if you're going to bail that way, bail that way. Don't try to make a double move, and then he's trying to ground it. This throw never gets ruled an incomplete pass. It either gets ruled a fumble or an intentional grounding. It's a lose-lose-lose because they're never going to let him get away with that. Again, that's a true freshman 18-year-old playing college football, so I'm not going to, of course, these guys aren't getting drafted now, right? So that's fine. And then, he does have a good arm. We've been talking so much about the pocket awareness, the pocket presence, all that kind of stuff. I do think that Mason Heintschel has a pretty damn good arm as well. This one's ripped in there. But that's what Mason Heintschel did this week against Florida State. If you want a website to leave all your draft evaluations or even just look at other college football players, one thing I like doing is if my team's playing anyone, you could go check what other people think about the players on the other team. Do some advanced scouting for Pitt going forward. But Mason Heintschel's up on we-draft.com, so please check that website out if you want a place to store all your evaluations. Thanks for watching.